Hi. Yes, I know. They're still sitting in a pile in my office waiting to get to the Scantron thing. I'll try and take them up later today. Sorry. Okay, how's everyone doing? How did it go during my absence? It went, yes. Go easy on Daryl. He's new to the job. Okay, so far we have seen actually three ways of implementing sorted sets using some tricks. So we've seen skip lists. You can implement sorted sets that way. We've seen treeps. You can implement sorted sets that way. And last class was scapegoat trees. So all of those have some version of O of log n time. They're all also fairly recent compared to some of the classic data structures. And so today we're going to look at one of the classics, and that is red-black trees. They're one of the most commonly used, most commonly taught implementations, so binary trees that implement a sorted set, and they're also my least favorite. And if you have a look in the book, you'll see why. Right now, it seems the computer in this room is not working, and I forgot my VGA cable, so I won't be able to show you some of the things that make red-black trees so annoying. But it's still good to know that they exist. And if for no other reason, then so far we've seen skip lists, which require randomization to work. All of the statements you make about them are about expected running times. Treeps, it's the same thing. You need these random priorities, so you're also talking about expected running times. And scapegoat trees, there you're talking about amortized running times. So you do these insertions that on average are log n time, but occasionally a big chunk of the subtree needs to be rebuilt, and the same thing happens with deletions. In fact, with deletions, sometimes you have to rebuild the whole tree. Red-black trees offer you O of log n worst case time. No qualifiers, no expected time, no amortized time. It's all worst case. Problem is, they are very difficult to implement and very difficult to remember all of the rules that make them work. So what I'm going to teach you before red-black trees is really about how red-black trees came to be. So the people who invented them, Gibas and Sedgwick, did not just come up with them out of thin air. They were actually simulating something else. And the thing that they were simulating is something called a 2-4 tree, or if you like, a 2-3-4 tree. Okay, so this is not a binary tree. As the name suggests, nodes in a 2-4 tree or a 2-3-4 tree can have 2 children, they can have 3 children, or they can have 4 children, or they can be leaves, in which case they have no children. So what do these things look like? Well, you know, like a binary tree, there's a root, and each internal node can have children, 2, 3, or 4. So for example, here the root has 3. Maybe this one has 2. Maybe this one has 4. And this one has, let's give this one 3 again. Okay. And it's best to think of the leaves as somehow being special. They're somehow different than the rest of the tree. In fact, the rest of the nodes, in fact, they're different in the sense that they're really, we imagine they're there, but in fact they're not. They just represent spaces between certain things. Okay, so first of all, what do I put in a 2-4 tree? Well, like binary trees, you put data in the nodes, and you use the data to decide when you're searching whether you should go left or right, or down the middle, or down the second child, or third child. So if you think about it for a few minutes, you'll realize that a node like this, which has 3 children, should probably have 2 pieces of data in it. So you might put 7 and 10 here. Okay. So now what should this mean? Well, if I arrive at this node and I'm looking for a value that is smaller than 7, I could look over here in this leftmost subtree. If I'm looking for a value that's between 7 and 10, I should look in this tree. So this is less than 7. In this tree is between 7 and 10. And in this tree here would be anything bigger than 10, right? Two keys gives me three options for where my thing fits in with respect to that key, the thing I'm looking for. And so here, how many keys should this node have? Just 1. So let's put a 5 there. If you're smaller than 5, you go here, and if you're bigger than 5, you go there. How many keys in this node? How many? Yep, 3. Good. So let's put in 8, 9, and 9.5. And again, when I give you 3 values, or when I give you k values, that defines k plus 1. It breaks the real line up into k plus 1 intervals, smaller than 8, between 8 and 9, between 9 and 9.5, and bigger than 9.5. And then over here I need 2 keys, so let's take 17 and 25. Okay. All right. So let's write down what we know about 2, 3, 4 trees. Each internal node has 2, 3, or 4 children. So that's one rule about 2, 4 trees. Another one is that each, or every leaf has the same depth. Okay. So that's good to know. And those are really the only 2 rules, that and this ordering rule. So if a 2, 4 tree has, let's say, n plus 1 leaves, then what can you tell me about its height? Not immediately obvious. Well, let's ask the question another way. if a 2,4 tree has height h, well, how many leaves does it have? So the height of this 2,4 tree is 0, 1, 2. So what can you tell me about the number of leaves in a 2,4 tree of height 2? Anything? Could it be a million? Yep. It's between 4 and 16. So how would you get 4? Yep. So there's a tree of height 2 that has 4 children, and we can't really make it any smaller. Remember, the rule says all the leaves are at the same depth. So basically, once we decide that, once we know that this thing is not a leaf, and we know that because its height is not 2, or its depth is not 2, then it has to have at least 2 children, and each of those has to have at least 2 children, and so on. On the other hand, if we wanted to see what the biggest 2,4 tree of height 2 is, well, we should give everybody 4 children, and then we get 16 leaves in the tree. So in general, if it has height h, what can you tell me about the number of leaves? Yeah. Why h minus 1? Four to the h, right? So it has, if its height is h, so for example here h is 2, it has somewhere between 2 to the power 2 or 4 to the power 2 leaves. Okay, so okay. So the number of leaves is between 2 to the h and 4 to the h in a 2,4 tree of height h. All right, that's good. Now, let's go back over here. If a 2,4 tree has n plus 1 leaves, then its height, we want to say something about its height. Do we know how to answer that? Well, so we know that we must have the following. We better make sure that what? 2 to the h had better be smaller than n plus 1. Otherwise, we're going to have more than n plus 1 leaves in our tree, because 2 to the h is at least the number of leaves in our tree. Okay. And on the other side, less importantly for us, well, we know that should be less than or equal to 4 to the h. Now, this is the part we're interested in. So another way of saying this is to take logarithms on both sides and say that the log of 2 to the h is less than or equal to the log of n plus 1. What's the log of 2 to the h? We'll use a convenient base for the logarithm, base 2. Yep. So on the left-hand side is h. On the right-hand side is log base 2 of n plus 1. Okay. So the height of a 2,4 tree is at most log base 2 of the number of leaves. Now, for some reason here, I called the number of leaves n plus 1. Why would I do that? What is n usually? What's the value of n usually referred to? Yeah? Yeah, so usually n is the number of elements in the tree, and for some reason here I said n plus 1 is the number of leaves. Is that by accident? Yeah.
In case that the tree has no elements, you can't perform the logarithmic of 0?
No, it's not even that. I mean, if we look at this tree, let's count the leaves. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And let's count n, the number of elements. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Is that an accident? Yeah. Kind of. What do these leaves represent? If I do a search and I end up in one of these leaves, what does that tell me? Like if I end up, for example, at this leaf, what do I know about the element I'm looking for?
Is that it there? Like in that spot, or it's on the tree?
Yeah, but what's it between? Yep. No. Yes, between 7 and 8. Yeah, so it's between 7 and 8. And if I end up at this one, it's between 8 and 9. If I end up at this one, it's between 9 and 9.5. And if I end up here, it's between 9.5 and 10. So actually, each of these leaves corresponds to an interval between two of the values that are stored in the tree. And so if I'm storing n values in the tree, well, so between those there should be n minus 1 intervals, and then there's the interval on the right, the one that's bigger than everything in the tree, and there's the one on the left, the one that's smaller than everything in the tree. So n values that I store here, they break up the real line, right? There's 8 of them, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. They break up the real line into 9 intervals, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So if there's n points, n values, then I get n plus 1 intervals. So the number of leaves in one of these trees is always exactly 1 more than the number of keys that it's storing. So that's why I called n plus 1 the number of leaves. Okay? Good. So, so already we're off to a great start, right? We have a tree that can store n data items, and the height of the tree is log base 2 of n plus 1, so it's logarithmic. We know how to search in this tree. If we're looking for a value x, we start at the root, and we compare to the 1, 2, or 3 values stored at the root, and that tells us which of the children to go to, or that we find it at this node. And eventually, at the end of this process, we find out exactly where x is in the tree or where it should be, what's bigger than x and what's smaller than x. Okay? And that's certainly going to take log n time. Good. So now what we would like to know is how we can add or remove things to one of these trees. So let's try that. See if we can add something to one of these trees. Let's say that I wanted to add the key, I don't know, 16. How would I do that? Yep.
You would start by comparing to see if 16 was less than 7, in between 7 or 10, or greater than 10.
Yep. So I start up here and I say I want to decide where 16 should go in this structure. Well, 16 is bigger than 7, so it's not going in the left here. It's not between 7 and 10. It's smaller than 10, so it's not going down the middle. And it's bigger than 10, so it's going down the right. At this node, 16 is smaller than 17, so in some sense, it should go in the left subtree here. Okay? but this is the bottom level now. So actually where this thing needs to go, 16, should go into this node. Where do I put it in there? Just put it before 17. 16. And that means there's now one more child of this node, the one that corresponds to the interval 10 to 16. And now this child here, the second one, corresponds to between 16 and 17. Okay. All right, that was easy. So it looks like insertion is easy in these things. Let's try another one. Let's try 7.5. Where does that go? Yep. It's between 7 and 10, so I go down here. But it's before 8, so it should go here. Okay, so 7 goes there. Is that good? Oh, sorry, 7.5. Is that good? Looks good. Yeah. Remember, there's two rules here. Every internal node has 2, 3, or 4 children. This one has 5 children now. So that's not good. What can we do to fix that?
New key under 8.
What's that?
Add a new key under 8.
What do you mean a new key?
Or a new node.
So you say put something here. So instead of that, put 7.5 down here. So that doesn't work because then 7.5 has 2 leaf nodes under it, and now all the leaves are not at the same depth. So we're not allowed to do that. So really the problem here is that we have a node that's too full. It's too big. So what should we do? Yep.
Throw the parent node and then split that node into 2.
Yeah. So let's take this node. It has 5 things in it. So we can split it into 2 nodes. One of them will have 2 things in it. The other one will have 3 things in it. So that's easy enough to do. So we split. So 7.5 and 8 will go off in their own node. Okay, so we have 1, 2, 3 guys there. So we still, between those 2 nodes, we still have a total of, we have four keys in this node, so we put 2 into each of the ones that we split. Now each of them has 3 children. Problem is this one doesn't have a parent yet, so we need to give it a parent. Yep.
Could we just, I guess, in a sense, elevate 8 or 9 to the root node?
So,
Add a new key?
yeah. So let's see what we have to do here. So we want to give this guy a parent. So looks good if we're just looking at these rules. Everything is okay. Problem is, if we're trying to use this as a search tree, well, we only have 2 keys here and we have 4 children, so we should have 3 keys here. So that means we need to somehow move something up. And what should we move up? There's 2 choices. Either of them works.
8 or 9.
Yeah, we can either move up 8 or 9. Let's take 9. 9 is between 7 and 10. That's the whole reason we got here. So we put 9 up here. It's gone from there, which means this thing only has 2 children now. now let's check everything. If you're smaller than 7, you go here. If you are between 7 and 9, you should go here. And indeed, those are all between 7 and 9. If you're between 9 and 10, you should go here. Yep. And if you're bigger than 10, you should go here. So that works. So we did an ad hoc thing there. So let's think about what we would do in the general case. So we do something like find the depth h minus 1 node. So this is to add x. That should contain x. Okay. Let's call that node u. And then put x into the node u. That's what we did down here. And then we do something like while u has 4 keys, and 4 keys means 5 children. That's a problem for us. Well, we had this node u here. It had too many things in it, so we split it into, let's say, u prime and u double prime. And we have to do something like make the new one u prime and u double prime children of the parent of u. And while we're doing that, we take the smallest value in u double prime. There's 2 values in u double prime at this point. There was 9 and 9.5, and we put it up into the parent. Okay. Find a nearly leaf node. We insert the new key. If we need to, we split it, and then we add that to the parent. Yep.
What if the parents already have 3?
Aha. What if the parent already had 4 children? Then when we did this operation, we would have 5 children. Do we know how to handle that? That's the situation we're handling, right? We created a node u that had 5 children, and we didn't like that, so we split it into 2 nodes. So that's why I have this while u has 4 keys. Then the last thing we do is we set u to parent of u, which means we do that whole check up here at the parent to say if you have 5 children, 4 keys and 5 children, then we'll need to split u, and so on. So this might propagate up the tree. And so we can see that happen. Let's put in 45. So 45 is the biggest thing, so it should go here. But now we have a node with 4 keys and 5 children, so we should split it into 2. That creates a new child at the parent, which means we should put a new key at the parent, and the key we use is 25. So there's only 45 left here. And now again, we have a parent with 5 children. We need to do something about it. We need to split it. So to split it, we break it into 2 nodes like this. And then we make sure both of those nodes are inserted in the parent. What's the problem here? Yeah. We're already at the root. What should we do? Yep. Well, what does that mean? That's what we were trying to do, is rebalance. Yeah.
You could try, I mean, it might be a lot of work, but shifting 7 into 3.
We could try and push some things around or whatever, but that's only going to solve the problem for a little while. Make a new root. Good idea. So let's just make a new root. The new root will have 2 children. The 2 that got created when we split the old root. 2 children means it needs to have 1 key. Well, we use the usual trick. We take the smallest key from this side and put it up there. Do we have to worry about splitting that one? No, because that's a whole new root. It only has 2 children, the ones we just created. And we think about that for a while. This had to happen, right? A tree of a specific height can only hold so much stuff. It can only hold 4 to the h minus 1 items. So eventually, if we keep adding things and adding things, the height has to increase. And this rule says that every leaf has to have the same depth. So the only way we can avoid having something really catastrophic happen, the way we can make every leaf get deeper all at once, is just to add a new node on top. Now everybody's deeper again, right? This is the new root. It increases the depth of everybody by 1. So it's sort of the way it had to happen. Yep. You always do, you have 4 keys, A, B, C, and D. You split into 2 nodes with A, B, and C, D. And the rule I like to use is to always take C and put it up here at the parent. No, not A. It has to be something that splits these values. So it has to be either B or C. So the 2 that bound that middle interval. Yeah. Okay. All right. So, well, how long does all that take? Well, we search for the leaf that finds what the node that's not a leaf, but just above the leaf level, that's supposed to store our thing. We put it there. And then we do a sequence of splits, usually just 1, or none at all, actually, usually, until we don't need to split anymore. And maybe we even need to, increase the height of the tree. But the whole point is, well, the amount of work that we do searching down to this thing is just the height of the tree. The amount of work that we do on our way back up is also just the height of the tree. These are constant size nodes. And the height of the tree is only at most log base 2 of n. So we can do this adding operation in logarithmic time. Easy to remember. Just put the key where you think it should go. If that node is too full, split it in 2, and that means add something to the parent and work your way up there. It's an easy operation to remember. Okay? Any questions? No? Good. All right. So now we know how to add. Let's look at how we remove something. So we'll go by example. Let's remove 7.5. So we search for 7.5 in this tree, and we find it here. So how do we remove it? Yep.
In this case, it's step the height before we can remove it and remove 1 child.
Yeah, we just take it away. Now this is a node with only 1 key, so it should only have 2 children. We're done. All right, that was too easy. Let's try a harder one. Let's remove let's remove 25. So here's 25. How do we remove that? Yep.
Well, it's probably a lot more work. We noticed that 25 only had one key and or two children.
Mm-hmm.
So we could just elevate 17 in this case and then still keep all we have to do is remove one child and node within the four.
Okay. So basically, we want to take 25 away out of this tree. But when we're stuck up in the middle of this tree like this, that's a problem because we're using 25 to decide whether to go left or right to this child or to that child. So if we're going to take 25 away, we need to replace it with something. And what do we replace it with? $17. So we're going to take 25, we're going to replace it with 17. And now we have to remove 17. Now, the good thing is 17 is at the leaf level, so it's easy to remove. We just take it away. Okay. Now, why was it okay to put 17 here instead of 25? Could we have put 16 here instead? Yeah. Yeah, because the picture looks like this. If we sort all our numbers, what we see is 16, 17, 25, and 45. Now, someone asked us to get rid of 25. So we want to replace it with something that if we compare to it, that we go in the right direction each time. So we actually had two options. We could use 17. If you're smaller than 17, you should be going off here to the left. If you're bigger than 17, you should be going off here to the right. Or we could have used 45, actually. That also would work. So whenever you're getting rid of a number, you can use either the one that comes before it or the one that comes after it as its replacement. And yeah, okay. So that's good. And the nice thing about that, if you think about these trees for a little while, you'll realize that if 25, the fact that 25 is an internal node in this tree implies that both 17 and 45 are leaves in the tree. So let's think about that for a second. Why should that be true? So I have, in this node, I had this 25. So there's some stuff here smaller than 25, and there's some stuff here bigger than 25. And the way that I get to, let's say, 17 in this case, in the general case, the smallest thing, or the biggest thing smaller than 25, is to go down this branch and then just keep going right, 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 right. That last thing that I see here is the biggest thing that is smaller than 25. If I wanted to find the smallest thing bigger than 25, I would go down this right branch and keep going left, 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 left. That takes me to a leaf, and the smallest thing in the node above that is the thing that comes after 25. Right? We can check that. 17, well, you go right and left as much as possible, but it's there. Okay. Okay. So we can reduce any internal, removing things from an internal node to actually taking something from a leaf and putting it there and then having to deal with removing it from the leaf. So we always only have to worry about deleting from a leaf now. Is it always easy to delete from a leaf? So what if I ask you to remove 8? Yep.
You would have to meld one out of like 7 or 9 in this case down into another node, possibly because 8.
Yeah, so when I remove 8,
and that becomes a leaf.
then it should only, I mean, you're supposed to have one more child than the number of keys you have, so you'd only have one child here. That's against the rules, because you're supposed to have at least 2 children. So how do I fix that? Yep.
Send 7 into 5 or 9 into the node with 9.5.
Send 7 into 5 or 9 into the node with 9.5. So let's see what we can do here. So in this case, maybe the best thing to do, we get rid of this thing and we put 9 down here. That's probably the easiest thing to do. So let's think about the general case. In the general case, I have some nearly leaf node. It has a value x that I'm trying to delete. It's the child of some other node, and it has some sibling here. I don't know what's in here. So I'm deleting, if I'm thinking of deleting the last thing from here, I should do something about this, deal with this somehow. Okay, so what are the options? Well, one thing I can do is to just get rid of this thing, which means I need to take a key from here and put it in there. Is that always going to work? So that's what we did here. We just got rid of this node and we took a key out of the parent, and because there's only one way to go now, so we didn't need that one anymore. Will that always work? Yep.
It won't work if the child is already at max capacity.
Yeah. So if this has 3 values in it, then if we just remove this, then we have to push something down here, and now we have 4 values and we're stuck again. So what should we do? Yep.
Try something like a rotation on X, or on the child, a parent of X. I don't know if I can have it in this case.
Yeah, well, there's actually a few things we can do. One of them is we just saw what to do, in the sense that actually, let's just do this. Kill this thing, put X in here. Now this tree doesn't work anymore because it has a leaf that has 4 keys in it and 5 children. But do we know how to fix that? That's the whole insertion routine we just did, right? We split this leaf and do what we need to do there. So that works. Another way to think of that is that what's really happening, because it's kind of weird to delete a node, overfill the other one, and then split it and get another node back. So what's really happening here, if you shortcut that whole process, is this node is actually borrowing keys from these 2 nodes. So really what's happening is there's some Z up here. What you do is A goes up to replace Z. Z comes down here beside X. This is okay, A is gone, so there's 2 children, 2 things here, 1 and whatever else was here, no change in the number of things here. But now there's 2 here, so we actually can just remove X. That's the same thing as getting rid of this node, putting whatever this thing was, Z, A, and then splitting again, you would get exactly the same picture. Okay. Good. Anything else that might go wrong?
What if the node A was originally and had multiple, like nodes that weren't leaf? The children weren't leaf, so A was needed to be a key.
A was needed to be a key. What do you mean?
So we just moved A up, right?
Yeah.
And it would have, now you would decrease the number of children by one because now they'll have.
Okay, I see what you're saying. So, I don't know, maybe the picture looks like A, B, C. This is a real tree here now. Yeah, and for some reason we're getting rid of this thing here, so we need to borrow. So let's think about what that means. So Z is up here, and the move we did was Z comes down here, A goes up there, okay, and this is gone. Okay, so this has 4 children but only 2 keys, so it has an extra child. This is the extra child. This one, I should have drawn this earlier, has 2 children only, but 2 keys, so it needs an extra child. And the one it takes is just that one. So we're still, everything balances out, and we still have the right number of keys and things.
So it's just like a rotation, like in a binary search.
It's just like a, yeah, like a rotation, yeah. Yep.
Maybe a problem that could occur is if you're rotating A up and Z down, on your left child, it might be pulled low.
Well, no, the reason we did all of this is because we were deleting the last value from the left child. Right. The only reason we needed to do any of this is because we're trying to get rid of X, and it's the only thing in this node. So if we delete it, we're going to have a problem there. So that's why we did that. Yep.
What if it wasn't like ABC, but in fact it was just A? So it was like Z has children, Z, or X and A. So
Okay, let's see. This, A, X, like that.
yeah,
Okay. So you want to know there's Z that splits these two things. And now we're deleting X. Okay, now what? What do we do?
Z goes down, A would go up. What if A was originally
Yeah, so what's the problem? What's the real problem here?
no matter what we do, the parents will only have one child?
Yes. So, so we're just out of keys, right? We have only 3 keys in a tree of height 2, and we're about to take one away, so we can't continue here. So what do? So really, that's like saying we could do something like, I don't know, Z, A. We get rid of this thing. Well, so what, I don't know, what should we do here?
We elevate Z to A in this case?
So what is the problem, I guess? Sorry, I'm going to have to disappear for 2 seconds. I really have to pee. That's why I've been dancing around. I'll be back in 2 seconds. Okay, good. So unlike the famous Leslie Nielsen movie, which I luckily have seen, I remembered to turn off the microphone before I actually went into the bathroom. Okay. Okay. Much better. Okay, so it was good timing too, because I was getting stuck on something, so I could have just ran out and never come back, right? But, let's think a little bit about the problem we're trying to solve here. So we had a leaf, and it was this X that we want to delete. Unfortunately, it's the last thing in its node. So if we delete it, we have to somehow delete that node, or we need to deal with that somehow. So how did we try and solve that? Well, we went looking for a sibling of this node, either to the left or to the right, whichever. And we tried to borrow something from that sibling. So if that thing has at least two keys, A and B, then we do that rotation trick. A goes up, Z comes down, and X disappears. If this is the last thing, if it has only one key, A, we can't borrow from it. So instead, what we can do, so this has only one, this has only one, we can put these two together. Now, that means there's one less child at the parent, which means there's one less key at the parent, and that key, there should be one less key at the parent, that key is Z. It should come down into here. Now, well, there could be other stuff here, I don't know, T, Q, Z. We'd be happy if that happened. Then we just take Z away and T and Q is still there. There's children. Everyone's happy. The danger, of course, is that Z was the only thing there. Now, so what's happening? This is exactly the problem we're trying to solve again. We have a node that has only one key in it, and we're trying to take that key out of that node, in this case to put it down here. But at the end, there's going to be no key left. So what do we do? Yep. If this is the root, then that's what happens. But in the general case, this node also has a sibling, and we try and borrow from its sibling. In case we fail to do that, we will end up merging those two nodes together, and so on. And this might happen all the way up until, the root of the tree, which has only one node. We merge its two children. This value comes down here, and now this is just not the root anymore. This is the new root. Okay. Again, this had to happen at some point, because if I have a really full bushy tree with lots of stuff in it, and I just start deleting, eventually the height has to decrease. How does that height decrease? That height decreases because you merge a node, which causes the parent to merge with one of its siblings, which causes its parent to merge with one of its siblings, until eventually you merge the two children of the root together, in which case this is not the root anymore. Okay. So this is, and if you do this carefully, you can write this in a fairly small amount of code. Actually the most annoying part of this is, of implementing a 2-4 tree, is this thing where you say, borrow from your sibling. So I'm trying to remove X and I borrow from a sibling. The most annoying part is sometimes you have a sibling on your right, but none on your left, and sometimes you have a sibling on your left, but none on your right. So you have to write extra code to handle those two cases. But otherwise, it's all fairly simple. Okay, so this removal process, again, finds the thing it's supposed to remove, swaps it with a thing that's above the leaf level so that it's easy to remove, and now removes the big node here with 4 children. Suddenly, it's 2 nodes. We just split that node into 2. So this 4 node got split into these nodes. And this thing now is sucked up into the parent. Well, why is that? Because we took this node and we split it into 2, which means we need another child at the parent. So that's why this thing got sucked up there. So, that's what a split looks like. That's like a really easy example. But essentially, you just look at the algorithms for the way they work in 2-4 trees, and you say, okay, how would I make the same thing happen in a red-black tree? And All sounds really easy. The problem is there's left-handed versions and right-handed versions of every single thing you want to do. Sometimes the left child is the red one and the right child is black. Sometimes the black child is red, and it's a total mess. You can look in the book, you'll see all kinds of figures with arrows saying do this and that. Who knows if it's correct or not. Yeah, in the end, you can make it work, but it's a pile of rules. Yeah.
So this type of tree is the same runtimes as the random binary search tree and the scapegoat tree, right?
Except they're deterministic worst case.
Yeah.
So
So if the difference between the random one and the scapegoat is deterministic. So why would we use this one?
the scapegoat is only amortized. So scapegoat is not great for if you're thinking of some real-time system, even something as simple as a video gaming system. It's nice that on average the operations are fast, but one of the things the scapegoat tree does is once you delete too much, it rebuilds the whole tree. Like you do one deletion operation, which here would be done in a few microseconds, now suddenly has to rebuild 1,000,000 elements in the scapegoat tree. So if you're stuck waiting on that, that's actually it's not good.
Scapegoat is basically strictly worse than the scapegoat.
Scapegoat is easier to implement, and I won't say strictly worst. It is. You can make scapegoat trees be arbitrarily shallow, close to 1 times log n. So you can make them faster for searching, but when you do that, the cost of adding and removing goes up. So depends what you're doing.
Is there any reason to use a red black?
Oh, they're in every programming library. So the reason to use them is somebody already went through all the trouble of implementing them. And they do work very well in practice, but you don't want to have to implement them. I've done it 3 times, and each time I think, yeah, now I know how to do it, and it still takes me like 40 hours each time.
Look at over the weekend or no?
I will get it out on Monday. Can do add, remove, and I don't know, find in O of log n worst case time. Okay, good. But that's not even the topic of today's lecture. Today's lecture is supposed to be about red-black trees. Now, if you were listening, when I introduced, and 2, 3, 4 trees have been known since at least the mid-1960s. These are Cold War era data structure. Red-black trees were invented in 1978. And then you might ask, why? When already in the 1960s we had this data structure that did everything in O of log n worst case time. So remember something I told you about computer scientists in relation to binary trees is that computer scientists fetishize binary trees. So they were said, 2, 3, 4 trees, look, some children have 3, some nodes have 3 children and some nodes have 4. That's not a binary tree. We need to do this with a binary tree. That's why red-black trees were invented. And I'll show you the trick. So here's the rule about red-black trees. Every node is either red or black. No 2 red nodes are adjacent. And the number of black nodes on every root to leaf path is the same. So that means if I start at the root of a red-black tree and I walk down it and I count the black nodes, so black nodes, I'll draw them filled in, then it doesn't matter which path I take. I can take this one, I'll count the same number of black nodes. It doesn't matter which root to leaf path I take, I'll see the same number of black nodes. Okay? And so since that's the same for every root to leaf path, that has a name, that's called the black height of the tree. And this is less critical. The root is black. So this is actually a bad picture. That's the black one there. Okay. So let's draw an example, and everything will become clear, or at least as clear as 2, 3, 4 trees were. So I need a black root. And let's put a red node here. Now, if this node is red, it says no two red nodes are adjacent, so its two children both have to be black. Oops. Okay, over here maybe we have a black node. That's allowed. And we could do something like a red node, maybe a black one here. So, is this a red-black tree yet, as it stands? What's wrong with it? Yeah, here I count 1, 2, 3 black nodes. Here I count 1, 2 black nodes only. So these things need to have more black nodes on their paths, so let's do that. So let's make sure we have 3 over here and really mess things up. We'll put a red node here, which then has to have 2 black children. And over here, let's just make it simple. Is that good? 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay. And I don't see any red nodes adjacent to each other. Every node is red or black. The root is black. This looks like a red-black tree to me. Yep.
Wait, isn't that one red node a leaf?
Sure.
So wouldn't that have a,
This one here.
yeah, isn't that a 2?
Oh, you're right. You're right. Yep.
And by adjacent, do you mean that, like, the parent node and its child node?
Yes.
So you can't have a red that then has a child that's red?
Yes, yes. So every red node has to have 2 black children.
Okay.
Okay. Siblings can be red. You can have a black node with 2 red children. So you can put these guys in our tree. Yep. And we put these little tags off all of the nodes. These are what we call the external nodes. Like a 2-4 tree, they don't hold any data. They're just there to represent intervals between keys. Okay, so the thing is a binary search tree, so you can imagine that I wrote numbers in all these nodes that make it into a binary search tree. Okay, so why these crazy rules? Why would anybody come up with this weird set of rules? So let's see. Let's take every red node, and from that red node, or rather, or look at it from the other way around, take any black node that has red children, 1 or 2, and have that node sort of absorb its children. So that you think of all of those 3 nodes or 2 nodes all as being a single node. So here, for example, this black node has 1 red child, so it absorbs that child. This one has 1 red child, so it absorbs it. This one has 2 red children, so it absorbs it. This one has 1 red child, so it absorbs it. Okay, good. So what I've drawn here, if you squint a little bit, is another tree, with these yellow blobs being nodes in the tree. Okay. Each of these yellow blobs is up to, and in fact you can think of yellow blobs around these ones here, they just didn't absorb anything. So each of these yellow blobs is actually made up of some original nodes of the red-black tree. So how many? Yep.
Number of blacks minus number of reds.
No, that's not what I mean. I mean, this node here, this yellow blob, how many nodes of the red-black tree does it correspond to? 2. And what about this one here? 1. And what about this one here? Okay. So the red-black tree has 1 key value. It's a binary search tree, so it has 1 key value in each node. So that means these blobs here, they have either 1 key value in them, like this one, or they have 2 key values in them, or they have 3 key values in them. Now hanging off these blobs are some children. And notice that if the blob has 2 nodes inside of it, red-black nodes inside it, then it has 3 children. If it has only 1 red-black node inside of it, then it has 2 children. And if it has 3 inside of it, then it has 4 children. So wait a minute. This all sounds familiar. So we have a tree here, this yellowish tree, which every node has 2 children, 3 children, or 4 children. And if a node has C children, then it has C minus 1 keys in it. That sounds a lot like a 2-4 tree. What's the other property that 2-4 trees have? All the leaves have the same depth. Is that true?
Yeah, because it's black height.
Yep. If I follow any root to leaf path, the number of black nodes that I go through is the same. Thinking in terms of these yellow blobs, actually, there's a yellow blob. There's exactly 1 black node inside of every yellow blob, and it's at the top of the blob. So actually, the number of blobs that I go through is exactly the same as the number of black nodes, which is the black height of the tree. Which means that actually this thing is a 2-3-4 tree. All the nodes have the same height. It doesn't look like it from this picture, but if I count the number of blobs I go through, they do, right? 1, 2, 3 blobs. 1, 2, 3 blobs. 1, 2, 3 blobs. So all the leaves actually have the same depth here. And so this thing really is just a 2-3-4 tree. Just another way of thinking of a 2-3-4 tree, but implemented as a red-black tree. Wow, easy, eh? It is until you start to program this thing. Because now, everything that we were doing on 2-3-4 trees, things like splitting nodes into 2, and things like merging nodes together, we have to figure out what that means in this binary tree in terms of rotations and removals of nodes and recolorings of nodes. Okay. So for example, I can do a couple of little things, but I'm not going to show you everything because it's actually a nightmare. There would be no point. You would forget it instantly. But, you know, some sample things, tricks that you do when rebalancing one of these things is something like, if you have a if you have a black node with two red children, so that corresponds to this thing in your, this corresponds to a node with 4 children in your 2-4 tree. Well, you can do a recoloring trick that says, make this thing red, these two things black. So that's not going to affect the black height because every path that used to go through here either goes here or here, so it's still going to hit one of these black nodes. So that's going to work. But what does that do